Hola, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday FM, Making Manga, where we talk about all things making manga and we bring our expertise and experience doing this stuff with, all of us having works published worldwide through Saturday AM. It is I, Odunse Kuguo, aka White Manga. And, hopefully we can have fun with this podcast and keep going. But co-founder Saturday AM, creator of Apple Black, and then some. And guys can introduce yourselves.
Ray Brown, creator of Bully Eater, also co-founder. I consider myself the Black Ops of Saturday AM. I do a lot of the dirty work behind the scenes, but yeah.
You carry the bodies.
And my name is Jay Odin. I am the creator of Hammer, Draw, and I make people laugh.
that's you're doing it. You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now.
You make yourself laugh too.
Yeah. That is true. It's pretty simple, but hopefully you got a little chuckle out of that. So enjoy the rest of this episode, guys.
Yeah, also the artist for the Rick and Morty manga.
Yes. I'm actually currently working on Volume 2. It should be coming out late this year, early next year, somewhere around there. But yeah, it's been pretty cool.
You're busy man because you're working on Hammer Volume 5, which is out too. So what was that like? Did you have to do them kind of at the same time, or?
Hammer Volume 5, no. I was working on that like with the magazine, and then when I had to make some changes, like I luckily had a lot of free time, or relatively so. But when it comes to the Rick and Morty Volume 1, I was doing Volume 4 at the same time, and that was an ordeal because the deadline was like a month in between each other. So I was a lot of late nights, early mornings.
Yeah, I've not actually read it, but do you enjoy the story? You enjoy what they're cooking with Rick and Morty?
Yeah, so it's not a connected story. What they originally wanted to do was to have like volumes drawn by different manga artists. They just liked me a lot and they came back to me because they were like, you're really fast as well. Let's, get this done. They already had another person that was writing the script for this one. The first volume was a lot more action packed. So that was a lot. It was fun in the sense of like getting all of my action scenes out. For this one, it's a little bit more comedic, drama driven. But there are still very few action scenes. So it's been pretty interesting so far. I like it.
Yeah, it seems like a cool project to be on. Every once in a while, given just the climate of this stuff, right? There's some artists who are more mercenaries with it, like commissions here and there. But even for us, every once in a while, somebody would throw a couple things at us, and if sometimes it's too much, and it's just got to say no. Sometimes, I've had some pretty big ones where I was just like, I gotta say no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah. But, luckily, I was, Hammer at the moment is on hiatus. For everybody that doesn't know, I actually have a son now, so that was a really awesome milestone. But
congrats.
Yeah,
man. Join the Fathers Club. Yeah.
Got to prove it now.
Wear your dad jeans and your white chunky shoes, and white chunky sneakers.
My socks that go up to my knees.
Yeah.
But since I was on hiatus, I had some free time when they came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to draw this?" And obviously, I need money, so I was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna try to make a way." And there's been some other projects that have come to me as well. I've been trying to juggle everything, but it's difficult for sure. So
yeah, like with me, I know there was one that came late last year, and low key, thank goodness it came. And I still be using my manga sisters, man. Those guys, they came in clutch. I was like, oh, thank God. You know what I mean?
I need that. I need
maybe we'll have like another episode where we kind of dive into, juggling multiple projects at once.
Yeah.
And how you can pull that off. Because the people in Japan, they be, a lot of times they're not working on multiple projects, but they're still working on a lot with like ridiculous deadlines.
It's
Yeah.
a machine.
Yeah, and obviously they have help. It's like a different culture out there. But yeah, today we're essentially talking about and reflecting on the idea of having a series that is long running. Right? Everybody thinks they're Oda. Everybody thinks they're One Piece. And how in the beginning, especially, everybody wants to jump in and like do an epic story, and even if their art skills are not as developed yet or refined, everybody wants to do like that big story. And then to a degree, I'm sure we were guilty of it back then to some degree. So like, Raymond, do you have any like, what was the original plan for like Bully Eater? How long did you want it to be? Because again, the point is like what we're saying. The thesis here, the takeaway,
Yeah.
if anybody's listening, is don't. In fact, start with a one shot, or if you're start with multiple one shots. Refine your skill, and then for a long running thing, you can still do something long, but like it's there are so many pitfalls to trying to do something completely like ridiculously long, like an Oda, which we will touch on throughout this video. But like Raymond, what was the Bully Eater plan?
Well, the funny thing is, I had these things called rules that locked me in. When I first created Bully Eater, it was to enter into. You guys remember that magazine? You remember Yen Plus? What was it? Yen?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
it's
Yen Press, Yen
Yen
Press,
now, but it was
yeah,
Yen
yeah.
Press. They had an annual contest where they would take a submission. So, I tried my hand at it, and they gave you, just like we do in summer manga, page count, how long it needed to be, and all that stuff. So, I was locked in, so I had to get it done in 20 pages. So it kind of got me, So I never, with Bully, I never really, expected it to be very long. Matter of fact, I was done with it in the first, the first chapter, but then I got put onto like webtoons, not webtoons, but web comics and stuff like that, like Manga Magazine from back in the day and all those guys. And then from there, that's when I decided to turn into a series and try to make new episodes and new chapters. So for me, I was already kind of like locked in to being a one shot because yeah, I never planned on doing anything like super long.
Yeah, you locked in. But Jay, I know you also being a One Piece fan. What was the Hammer plan?
uh, Originally, the Hammer Plan was only 8 volumes, but I say
Yeah,
that if it's only 8 volumes.
yeah. 8 volumes is low key. 8 volumes is still long, but
It,
Yeah.
and to be honest with you, I didn't really know exactly how to write it in a way that I wanted to write it. Because originally I wanted each volume to be its own arc. So, like for instance, the Ocean Kingdom arc was only supposed to be 1 volume in the very beginning, and then the Jungle Kingdom 1 volume, then the third one was Bird Kingdom, so on and so forth. So, and then when I wrote it all down, like it's ridiculous because I look back at my notes and it definitely gives me inspiration. It gives me some ideas, all that stuff. But it's ridiculous because I'll look at it and it was like 112 chapters. I'm like, how was I supposed to do 112 chapters in 8 volumes? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, yeah, and like the book would be like this thick, like
yeah,
every single book. Like it was insane. So yeah, like I did not know exactly how I was going to make it happen, but that was the original plan. And it's definitely morphed into several different ideas at this point. So I like the trajectory that I'm on right now, but to be brutally honest, I would love it if I could end it in 8 volumes. That'd be great. But I mean, I think 10 is probably where I'm going to be sitting at, and that will be enough for me. Like I don't want it to really go too much longer than that.
no.
But if I could end it shorter than that, I think that'd be pretty great.
This means I'm the real guilty one here. I'm the real guilty one here because shoot, I remember when I first thought of Apple Black. It wasn't even called Apple Black, but like just the story.
Strawberry Black, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't
Strawberry
it?
Black. Yeah,
Strawberry Black. That's what.
Strawberry.
Strawberry black.
Yeah,
Yep.
Strawberry Black. And then you start to like that was like a different time, man, because it's like the art style was like there was still a lot of stuff I just didn't know yet. I was still like gathering, as learning and growing. And my art style was like very, very like some people you can still see the Bleach influence, but you can see other influence about from other things, right? But I don't get those comparisons anymore, thankfully. But before it was very bleached, and the fact of calling it strawberry black, which in some ways, depending on how you say it, translates to Ichigo Kuroro too. I was just like, okay, 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 let's take a step back, and what's funny? I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that Bleach was originally going to be called Black. So
In
it's
my
like
book, what is even Bleach like?
exactly. So it was one of those things where they thought like Black was too bland, so he called it, because why is it called Bleach? Like
Yeah,
you have to think really hard to come up with a
you
reason
can
as to why
tie it
it's
to
called Bleach.
his form that turns white, but that didn't come until like way later in the manga, like when he like turns all white.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
somebody told me that it was because he bleached his hair, right? Like it was
Oh,
orange. Like that's what I had always heard, and I was like,
he's
that's
I,
fan graphic,
when
man.
so,
when
like,
has he ever bleached his, like,
that's
it's
what
natural orange hair.
I had no idea, man. I mean, he was all
Yeah,
Japanese. There's usually, I mean, as far as I understand, there's no redheads naturally
yeah, yeah.
around.
Dude,
But this
dude,
is the same. This is the same manga with like people with pink hair.
True.
Uh, there's people with natural pink hair. Like anime
dude,
does this weird thing with hair color where they kind of just do whatever they want. Sometimes hair color, eye color, and that's why sometimes when if you're drawing a black character, some people, just to feel authentic, maybe they want it to still have. They don't want the black character to have like wild color hair. But I'm like, wait, why does everybody get to have ridiculous Yu-Gi-Oh hair, but black people, oh, your hair has to be realistic?
yeah, it got to be the Killmonger. It
Yeah,
got
it got to be. It's like, nah, you can do whatever you want. But like with Ichigo, I always thought it didn't make sense. Ichigo, Naruto, whatever. But I always thought it was natural hair. The reasoning in my head for the bleach that I just use when I'm having the conversation is like, oh, maybe when you kill a hollow, you're kind of, I don't know, bleaching, they're cleaning their soul. I don't know.
reaching, dude.
Reaching.
Dude, he took a Webster, the dictionary, and literally just picked the English word out of it to sound cool. Done.
Yeah, done.
I
So
think I think not only that, but also it was a metric to see exactly how successful he could be. Because now you can type in bleach, and it's not just Clorox; it's also Ichigo. like that's an amazing feat.
if
Hey,
if
got
they
it.
wanna
Hey,
if
I've
they
changed.
wanna if Tide wants to make money, they should just license bleach, put some anime character on your Tide, on your
Done.
Clorox and Tide.
Yep, yep.
For
All the anime fans, they would never buy any other brand
any
ever
other brand.
again in their life.
You need bleach. You got to have bleach as a grown up. You got to have.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
everybody's gonna be buying that shit. Anyways, but yeah, in the beginning, it was very much on that ilk. But a lot of my influence comes from that era, like the Bleach, the Naruto, the One Piece, and all that. And so I was just doing what I saw. I wasn't really thinking beyond, right, what the actual story needed. So at that time, the story was also very different from what it is today, right? And so back then, I was thinking, oh, it's gonna have all these arcs and this kind of arc and da da da, blah 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 blah. And I was thinking maybe, I know the chapters were in the hundreds.
Mm.
Like
Ask me what
300, something like that.
I think. I
Remember
think
the
Loki, yes, probably something like that. But not so volume wise. I was looking in like definitely more than 60, anywhere from like some crazy number, some
Yeah.
ridiculous number. Some ridiculous number. And obviously, we some of the cons, like we know now some of the cons of like having too many, the shelf space in
That's a big one. That's a big one. That you know what? That we should talk about that because I don't think a lot of new creators think. I know I didn't think that because
yeah,
think about it because that's the first place. Ultimately in your mind you want your stuff to be at Barnes and Nobles or at the comic book stores, places that you've seen your favorite manga.
yeah,
But if they got 60 volumes of just your manga, I mean they're not going to do that for one. But
yeah, they
even
won't.
if they did, that's a whole shelf. That means they got to kick. If your manga starts with an N or O or M anywhere near Naruto, you basically ask them to take Naruto and put it to the side and put your stuff there.
And they're not gonna do that.
Yeah. No.
Oh, heck no, they ain't gonna do that.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
like, yeah, they
and
even struggle with One Piece.
not only that, but let's say you did have 60 volumes. Like, how many copies of each volume do they have? Like, in the back?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if they only had, like, maybe one or two, like, that's a lot of inventory for them to carry. And if your story isn't actually selling like that, then what incentive do they have to keep on, like, restocking it? Like,
Imagine you're doing all this, you're planning all that, and by like volume 30, nobody cares anymore. And you're
Right.
like, and you want to do to 60, please.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, I think that era of having One Piece length manga is gone.
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
even Japan, I think they're, like, ending their series a lot quicker. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure how long volume wise, Magic and Muscle or Mashal and Muscle.
Masho,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that ended after like 100 something chapters. So like
Yeah,
that's like probably what 10, 15 volumes or something like that. Like
yeah,
it's not like 70 or 100 like One Piece.
yeah. I think like a very, very, if we see it again, it'll be a very, very unique case.
18 volumes on
Yeah,
that.
so
18. Yep, there you go.
that's it. Just 18 volumes. It's finished.
18.
Is Masho finished?
Yeah, yeah, that finished like a year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
18
okay.
volumes, dude. 18
Yeah.
volumes.
So to me, 18 is like light compared to what all these mangas used to do. You know what I mean? Like
How'd you know
we,
has more than One Piece?
bro,
Yeah, because it started in 1989.
is it
Like
still going?
strong too. Hajime no Ippo. Yeah, look it up.
Is
Yeah,
still
yeah.
going?
Oh no, it's still going. He'll
How
take
many
hiatus and breaks, but not.
how many boxing fights does this man?
I tell you, because I read it. I read it, and dude, I ask myself the same question. Like, man, how could he do this that many times over the years? But every fight feels like exciting. Like every fight, the stakes build. Like it
Yeah.
feels like it's something like on the cusp of happening. Like I don't know how he does it, but he just keeps doing it over and over again.
And the art is so good too. Like, I mean, he does a good job of drawing those boxing matches. Like, it's
Yeah,
insane.
no, yeah.
Like, I love his.
I didn't know it's still going. It's pretty much because some people say like One Piece is pretty much the Grey's Anatomy of anime. or so that means Ajime is like maybe the Law and Order or something.
Yeah.
Because if it's still going and it's still good, like you can't tell me when he started he was like, yes, this is what's gonna happen 20 years from now. Like
Well,
no way.
well,
I'll,
I think that's a good place where like I think that's where you can kind of take from American comics at that point because like American comics does a much better job of doing runs. Like American comics don't have this like, hey, I'm gonna write Spider Man for the next 10 years. Nah, it's like I'm gonna do a run. I'm gonna do Superior Spider Man. That's gonna last like two what do you call it, paperback trades worth or three or four or whatever, and then I'm gonna do whatever and I think you like manga, like being like a new manga, you can benefit from that. Like obviously, we're gonna talk about making one shot stuff like that, but like maybe instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna make this long epic, maybe you just say, okay, I'm gonna make a run of my character facing off against these villains.
Pretty much an arc.
Yeah, an
yeah.
arc. Yeah, there you go, like an arc. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's pretty much an arc, but depending on the type of story you're writing, you can have the arc, almost feel like the end of the series, and then if you want to do it,
right.
and then you do it again. What some series would do is like, okay, you can have your run or arc or just your whole story be done, but let's say after a couple of years, you want to do something with the characters again, then you can just come back and say, let's say the series is called Hammer, right? Then you
Or
come back, Hammer X, Hammer XO. Hammer Stud. It's like a sequel series, but okay, you've taken your little break because one of the things that I was looking at, especially as you start to draw the manga. Again, I wasn't thinking that much, and I started doing it when I was in college. So as you start to do the manga and you see how long it's taking, I always knew it would take long and it was difficult, but like when you're actually doing it, it's like a different experience. And then you start to do the math. Like, wait a minute, 60 volumes. Like, do I actually need 60 volumes? Do I actually need 60 volumes? If I actually did 60 volumes, do you know how old I'll be when I'm done? Do I want to do other things? Like, you eventually, right? And this is something artists can take away, is like eventually you start to get realistic and honest with yourself about certain things.
Doing
And then
long enough.
also sometimes a lot of those older manga stuff, yeah, there were so many chapters because they be dragging stuff.
Mhm.
One
Yeah,
of the reasons I like Death Note, even though Death Note kind of comes from that space, especially early Death Note, it is bam, 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 like stuff is happening, and
Every
that's
chapter.
why to me, Death Note has one of the best starts for like any series. It's one of the best to recommend for somebody who's maybe even getting in. It still has realistic stuff about it, but stuff is happening. A lot of times you don't want something where it's like stretched out and then you're writing the story and it's like, oh man, I can't wait for them to get to chapter 302. When it's like you really need them at chapter 1 or you need them immediately. You know, they have to be hooked as fast as possible. And what you're writing, you still need to love it. It still needs to be interesting. There's so much you have to do. You can't save all your good stuff for when everybody's kind of left the room. They've left the chat, you
that's
know.
bad.
So
I mean,
I had like as time went on and I started to write I was also getting better as a writer. So I started to like shave things off that were actually unnecessary and actually focus on, you know, that kind of Death Note style of like just let's get to the meat of it. And then working with Saturday AM and seeing all the things that need to happen, you know, with the magazine. And it even intensified once the book deal happened, where it's like, oh, I started to see things very clearly. So something that used to be 60 something volumes, now I'll be like, if I do it in 20, I'm fine. 20, I'm fine. And honestly,
that's still
20, 20 is still a lot, right?
yeah.
If I was looking at my story, right, I've even considered where it's like, hey, you know, I could do something where, because there's a time skip stuff, but I could end the series before the time skip, and then the time skip is like another series. You know what I mean? So before that, Apple Black could really end in like chap in volume 16, 17, and that will be nice. But then I can then have a break or whatever, and then I think I can even come back with a completely different artist. I don't care. Hopefully, Apple Black is brought in the dough at that point. We can retire. But the whole story, I can see it like 23 volumes. But I can end the time skip because the ending at that point is still a decent ending. So I can end it there and that could be just that, and then you'll, you know, Apple Black something when and come back, which is essentially just kind of like the time skip. So
Well,
depending on how you look at it, it's like 17 volumes, but overall, I would say like 20 to 23.
I think you could do it just like how Chainsaw Man did it, because like he just picked it right back up. He changed the main character sort of for like a little bit, and it followed the girl, and like it feels like a new series, but it's kind of like just like this is the next arc, the next main big arc or
Yeah,
what
yeah, 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 yeah.
break in between that entire time. So like that's how I kind of see it. Like for Hammer, like if I would like to end it by like the 8th or 10th volume max. And if I did pick it up, to be brutally honest with you, I would love to have somebody else draw it, and I could just like be a consultant and say, "Hey, this is."
Exactly. So that is definitely an option. So I was as I draw it, right? Because there's sometimes where there have been some situations where yeah, I planned for something to take in my head, it was going to take maybe 3 chapters to do. But while I'm doing it, I'm like, wait a minute, I only need 2. You know what I mean? So as I'm making it, I'm realizing the story is actually shorter than it is, which makes me feel good. That means it's potentially it might be less. So I could say yes, maybe the whole thing might be 23 right now, but maybe not, it might be 18, kind of like Mashal or whatever. But like I said, even that is still a lot because you have to consider the bookshelf space, like we discussed. You have to consider you as a person. Like, are you going to be able to draw all this? Like, how many books can you actually put out in a year? Do you actually honestly plan on drawing your manga for what, how many, 20, 30 years? You don't want to do anything else. You know what I mean? Do you legitimately have that much dedication to it? But what else are you guys' thoughts on long running stuff?
Well, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the hardcore truth of it too. Is that look, you got to sell. You know what I mean?
True.
It's way easier to sell one book than to sell 60 of them. Way easier. Way
100%.
easier. You know what I
100%.
mean? I mean, you look at like if you look at it. Again, I don't have the numbers from me or anything like that, but you look at it. You take something like Naruto that ran for as many chapters. I mean, volumes as it ran. I can't remember. What was it like?
72.
Was it? It was something like 70,
Yeah.
70 something. And you take Demon Slayer that came out recently, right? And they did way less, and still making bank. I'm not gonna say it's making as much as Naruto or anything like that, but I'm saying, look, I'll take that. I would take that win. You know what I mean? Like I can be in GOAT status with my manga with 18 as opposed to 70. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think starting out, that's why you start out to even do a one shot to see if you like it. Do a one shot to like get some XP and
yeah,
grow and get better. Because again, you'll be able to get a lot of your mistakes out the way. And honestly, if I could go back in time, I'd probably do even more one shots. Because I did Candle when you did Bully Eater. That was when I did Candlejack. Because that's
yeah, I
when I think we went to. It was the same. I turned in for the same competition, but like I got so many mistakes out the way with Candlejack, and then I did
yeah,
Samurai Top Hat. I got so many mistakes out the way with that. Even before Candlejack, I had an attempt with Strawberry Black, right? And by page 3, I was questioning if I want to draw manga. I was questioning if I even want to draw manga because it's like at that point, the internet wasn't as powerful, so there was still a lot I just didn't know, and it just when you're drawing something and you just know it's not working well, it's not working how it needs to. But I got a lot of mistakes out the way. If I did even more one shots, I probably would have gotten stuff even more out the way. But thankfully, whatever I put out with Apple Black, it still holds up to this day. For the book deal, I did tweak some things in the beginning, but it still kind of worked out. So my advice is to do a lot of one shots, like a lot, put it out there, get feedback, grow in that way. And even when you're ready for your story, trim it down to just the good stuff and maybe plan for like a 5 book series or 4 or 3.
Well, to be honest with you, one thing that I've been thinking about more and more, like I really enjoy Hammer, and I'm glad that it's gotten to where it's gotten. But two things about that. One, I mean, I have so many different ideas that I would like to explore and like to draw. And if Hammer was substantially shorter, or if like I had planned it to be like a 1 book series, and if it like got really really popular, I could do another sequel.
Exactly. You can always come back.
Like that's how I wish I would have written it out. So like all the other stories I have in my head are like all like 1 book. Like they feel more like movies in my head right now. And
Yeah.
I feel like if I did like I had this one story in my head that's I'll just give you guys the concept. It's basically a Nazarite versus the mafia. And essentially like he's like like uh like saving his granny's shop, and it's like 12 chapters long. I have it written down, and I can't even touch it because I have so many other things I got to do right now. But like that is like a self-containing story, and if it got popular enough, then I could do another volume, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And not only that, but also even though I like Hammer, and I'm very glad that I like this character, there are certain times where I'm like I'm bored of this story, and like I wish I could do something else. And like if you were working on a story for 60 volumes long, like I know for a fact that Masashi Kishimoto, like I think he said it in an interview, like he got bored of Naruto. Like I mean, obviously like he did what he needs to do, and he, created something that was, still standing and everybody still
Yeah.
likes it. But I mean, the only manga artist that I know other than Hajime no Ippo, Conan, and Aichiro Oda, those are the only 3 that I can think of that like love their stories so much that they're still going now past I don't know thousands of chapters. Like that's ridiculous, but
Yeah, yeah, you definitely need to love your story. I will say I don't really have that problem, but then again, I don't plan on doing Apple Black for you know a bajillion chapters and stuff like that. Like the story I have, I'm excited to tell, and it keeps trimming down. Like I said, like the more I actually write it down, I actually see. Wait a minute, I don't need this. I don't need that. Sometimes maybe I'll overinflate something. Maybe I think, oh, this fight scene will be 3 chapters, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, actually, no. I just need maybe 1.5 or one. You know what I mean? And again, we also have a different philosophy with what we do with Saturday AM. Like we're not the Japanese, so we don't always have to follow that to a T. Like Raymond said, sometimes we'll take from like the Western stuff. And the Western stuff, they be going quick. Wolverine will put out his claws, and like 50 people are dead. Like
Yeah,
in like
That's,
two panels.
as long as it looks
a
cool,
wrap.
that's
It's
all
a
it
wrap.
is. Yep.
But that was one thing I remember. I never really read the whole series, but I remember when Fairy Tale first came out, right? And the manga, and I remember reading the manga, and I was getting into it because the fights were snappy. They were really snappy. Like they didn't go on and on. Like they tell you who the bad guy is. They tell you what the stakes are, and shoot, that fight is over in probably maybe 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Versus what I was used to reading, where the fights would just go on and on
Yeah,
and on.
yeah. Some people, some they be dragging some fight, and especially if you have like multiple fights happening at the same time, they'd be like jumping up and dragging some fights where you sometimes you have to understand how much freedom you have as the because it's all art, right? So you
Yeah,
realize how much freedom you actually have. Like you don't have to follow exactly what the Japanese do. You don't have to follow even what the Americans do. You can kind of create your own, or you find what works best for the story. Not every fight needs to be multiple chapters, So, and like I said, back especially the older stuff, they be dragging, or the anime versions, they be dragging as well because they don't want to they don't want to catch up to the manga. So Luffy will squeeze his fist, and they'll cut the camera, then they'll cut back to the other guy, and they'll cut back to the other guy, and then the music they'll cut back to, and then it's to be continued, and then you come back, and then they'll spoil the whole episode at the beginning of the episode, and then you go back to fights. Some fights will last for like 10 episodes. And
dude.
I heard there's something called One Pace that kind of cuts everything down.
I've seen,
That's smart. You
Yeah.
you read my mind because like, sorry, Jake, cover your ears. But like, I remember when I used to watch One Piece, and I remember when those arcs were over, I was exhausted as a reader. As a watcher. I mean, I'm talking like so exhausted that I'm like, man, I don't even know if I'm ready for the next arc because that was a lot, and it took a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, I feel like, and you guys chime in, but like, I feel like part of your as being a mangaka is being responsible to your readers of their time as well, because it's like, dude, you got their attention. Let's not waste it. Let's get them a fun experience. Let's give them good stuff as soon as we can, so they can be out. Then go into the next thing and be back when we're ready to do it again.
Yeah. Isn't
Versus,
that's why they're go ahead, Jay.
uh, to piggyback off of that, I totally agree. Like, One Piece arcs are a different animal, but bringing it back to Kimetsu no Yaiba, or what's the name, Demon Slayer. Actually finished the entire series recently, and I was watching all the anime, and every single arc was like another season. Like it was just one season, this entire arc, and like the first three or so episodes were usually the slow part, setting up the entire setting. These are the characters that are going to be in the arc. It'll show the bad guy, and then immediately after those 3 or 4 episodes, it got right into the action, and then like it was just fight scene, fight scene, fight scene. And like, yeah, some of it was a little bit longer than like Fairy Tale, for instance. It wasn't like 2 chapters and then you were done, but it was interesting. It like immediately got into the fight, and like the stakes were super high. Like everything was like really interesting. So that's the type of storytelling that I've just been trying to think about more for Hammer. Like the next volume that I do, I've been thinking about it more and more about like, hey, this just needs to feel like a movie. Like these are the bad guys. This is the setting. This is what needs to happen immediately. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of young artists don't necessarily like realize in the very beginning, because they're like, I just need this to be like Dragon Ball Z, where there's 10 volumes for Planet Namek, and then like these many volumes for the next season, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's insane.
I remember like even for Apple Black, the first arc I ended up doing it in like 4 volumes, but now every arc I'm like writing stuff and moving stuff around to make sure, because again the benefit is that it actually forces you to get to the good stuff quicker, because the era that those series were at was a different era of like attention span, and now everything is like, and the stuff that was snappy back then was always great. That's why I reference Death Note, because every episode was like, you didn't have to wait too long. And if you can do that, even if it doesn't matter if your series is long or whatever, but if you can do that with each installment, that's where it's at to me. And so Now I'm like trying to rewrite everything where each volume I treat it like a 3 act structure thing, each volume. But then the arcs I treat each for this, let's say the 3 volumes in the arc, it's kind of like act 1, act 2, act 3 as a voice. So I kind of think of it in that way as I'm writing, and I find interesting ways to use all the good stuff with what's happening. Like what's the story I want to tell, and I want to get to it quickly. So I think the reason the first volume probably took 4 volumes was because, again, I was slowly transitioning from that old way of thinking. Like if I could do it in 2 volumes, I would, but I'm slowly transitioning from that, and I think it still worked. That's why, like you said, Raymond, again, you don't even know if you're, especially if you're not independently published, if you're like published through something, you don't know if you're gonna get to. You might plan for 30
Yep.
volumes, but you might be done in 2.
Yep.
You gotta make that first chapter cook, and you gotta make that first book cook if you're fortunate enough to be in the game long enough to because we've been throwing around some big numbers, 6 volumes, 7 volumes, 8 volumes. Dude, 1 volume is a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lot.
yeah.
And
Even like Harry Potter's what, the 7 books?
yeah,
7 or 8.
writing. I mean,
I
not
think it
discount
was I
writing.
think it was 8 movies, but I think it was 7 books, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think they wanted to milk it, right? So like, okay, we have one more book, let's make it split it into 2 movies, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. And it's
But
more
then,
brutal in Japan because it's like even top creators be getting canceled. Like Kishimoto had like a samurai series that
yeah, Samurai 8. Yep.
yeah got
Yep.
cut.
But,
So if you're going a traditional publishing route, you might not even last that long. And if you're
yeah.
going independent, then you need to make sure your fans are into it, because if not,
Yeah.
you're just wasting your time.
But look, man, like people, nobody talks about this, man. But like people are eating off one book. How I know? If you go to Kindle right now, go to the manga section, there'll be scores of books that you never manga, like that you never heard of. But then you'll look, and you know this, right? And Jay, you've seen this, where they'll have like 300 reviews. You know what I mean? Like they'll have a decent ranking on the Amazon score, and it's just a person that made one book, just one book, one manga book. And you don't see another one. You might see another one. They may make the first book, and then the next one won't come out for another 5 years. But they're eating off that one book because they put everything into that book to make sure it was going to hit.
Yeah, it's,
And
it's definitely possible. You see it a lot with novels too, where it's like if the novel really does well and
mhm,
it'll get a lot of reviews, and then all these people, vultures who want to like turn it adaptations and things like that. Like the beginning after the end, I believe, was a novel at first, and then it got adapted into like these scroll format for Tapas,
mhm,
and then it did well there because, again, it built the following from the independent books. I think they were independent, maybe not independent anymore, but at the time. And then that grew, and now they have an anime. Even though everybody hates the anime because in fact, there's a petition to have it canceled because
I
the
saw that.
yeah, because the animation is not dynamic. I think people have been spoiled with like the Don to Don, the Chainsaw Man, and stuff like that. So
How
this
much do you have to hate an anime to start a petition?
what is
He's like,
that?
please
Look,
stop this.
hey,
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
with
competition. It was like 40. It's like 30,000. It's a high tens of thousands. These are
hey,
fans. These are fans because they're like, yo, how fans are with their with their nerddom and their king.
Yeah.
They're
They're
trying to get. They like this stuff, right?
yeah,
So they want new people to come in and like it. But the anime is like, imagine if I told you like, oh man, Jay, the beginning after then is so great, it's so amazing, and we're like, yeah, yo, you know what? You can just start with the anime. Just start with the anime, and you like it so much, you go everywhere, and then we turn on the anime, and it's like. Like everybody's roasting it for being like a PowerPoint anime, and I feel bad for the creator, because the creator, obviously, he loves his stuff, right? And he picked the studio. So it's a situation where it was so popular, and he even had the opportunity to pick the studio. He was happy with the studio, were fans of the stuff, But now his own fans are like roasting the thing. They're like PowerPoint animation. You know how those episodes, those episodes of Naruto and One Piece or Bleach or whatever, that it's not like an important episode. It's not filler, but it's not like an important episode. It's not the episode that they put money in, right?
Right.
Where you can just tell, okay, they didn't everything is cheap here, right?
Yes.
Divide that by 3. That's what it looks like. And honestly, I was shocked. So it's not like it looks like fan animation.
Man, that is.
It looks like fan. It looks like fan animation that was just good enough to cross the line. Because I don't actually think the animation is bad. It's just that people have been spoiled so much. People were roasting the Blue Lock as well. Was Blue
Like I saw that.
Blue
I
Lock
saw
season
that.
2.
Saw that. Yeah.
Blue Lock season 2, because people are so used to like the really cool fluid animation. One Piece leveled up his animation recently, so it's like everybody's on that wave. If you try and go back, especially if you're a new IP, it might hurt you overall. So it might hurt the IP overall, even though it's like anime and everybody's into it, everybody's watching. You're more likely to expand your viewer base and your audience and everything when you get an anime. So unfortunately, it's I don't know, it's like kind of like a gift and a curse, because it's popular because of how people are talking shit about it.
Right. Pop for no reason.
But I feel bad for the creator, because again, you get an anime, you probably be very excited, but it's not working out. It's not working out as well as they would hope. So I know he put out a note talking about like, hey man, like the fans just give it a chance, give it support it, which makes sense, because stuff like this, especially when it gets into like everybody's talking about it, if they get a season 2, I promise you, season 2 animation will be heat.
And that's the one kind of novel thing I see about it, is that it does create change.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's not a bad thing. Like I think about the Sonic movie. Remember Sonic? Like fans went crazy.
Yes. The horrible looking Sonic.
Yeah, and in a way, if you can tie it back to the fans made Sonic what it is today. They're on the 3rd movie now.
Yeah.
They came out with that crazy looking mess they did the first time.
Yeah. So it might be a good thing for the series in the end if it gets to like if it gets greenlit for a season 3,
Yeah.
But like
that petition shows they at least care. Like, because
I agree. It definitely shows that they care. I mean, it's just kind of jarring sometimes. I'm like, man, they started a petition.
Yeah, they started a petition with tens of thousands of signatures.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if anything, that shows definitely a lot of support for like the IP. Like, there's this many people that want to see it like do really well.
Yeah, they want to see it do well, because even if you look at if you look at the book reviews, I think it has a lot of reviews, on Amazon, like tens of thousands. I think for the novel version, obviously it did well on Tapas. Even the creator was talking about how difficult that was. Like they would go below industry standard and they'll put out like episodes with like 30 to 50 panels for a series that's like action based like that, where generally it should be around like 60 to 80 panels. But the fan base, they supported it through all of that. So I think hopefully he'll be fine. He'll be okay.
Well, that actually brings us to the next part with dynamic publishing, because I mean, he went from what you said, it was a novel, and then it went to Tapas.
Yeah. So and again, this is great, because there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm just a writer. I'm not a. You can just write your stuff and put it out there. You don't always need an artist. But I think
before you move on from that, man, there's a lot of freedom in being a writer, dude. Like I know we get approached by a lot of people that like, oh, I can't get my story out until I get an artist or whatever. Dude, you can, man. Sometimes I wish I was a like actual writer, just so I can get my ideas out without having to worry about the process.
You still can. You still can.
I mean, but not as quickly. Like, think about it. Like, you can write a whole novel or several novels by the time it takes you to draw a couple chapters of a manga, because especially if you're doing it by yourself. Drawing manga takes a long time.
I will say definitely writing is easier for sure, right? But I think writing is also a skill, right?
It is.
You can have a great idea, right? But your storytelling skills still need to match, right? And even if your storytelling skills are good, let's say at telling me the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Writing it in prose like a novel.
Yeah,
Is a different.
totally different.
It's a different
Because
book.
over the years I've gotten into ebooks a lot of times. It's like there are a lot of ebooks I like to read, and like it really shows you this, like you're talking about the craft of writing versus just actually writing down ideas and just trying to come up with a story. Like these guys, I mean, they're good. They're so good at like being descriptive about what's going on that you can see it in your eyes. Like you don't have to consider that when you're writing a comic book. You don't have to consider how do I describe what this person looks
Yeah,
like.
it's much straightforward.
You know what I mean? It's so you just show it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whereas if you're a writer, you got to be clever with words and how you describe.
that's a
Okay, he just drinking a cup of coffee. You
yeah.
know what I mean? He's the coffee burned his lip a little and made him
Yeah,
think of.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
The ginger and the liquid danced on his tongue
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
as he shimmered on his chair in excitement. And yada
Yeah,
yada yada. Yeah, so you gotta have to, and people have the same way you have like art styles. People have like writing styles and stuff.
writing styles. Yes,
So
yes.
that's why we have like the light novel got from Stephanie Williams. Shout out to Stephanie Williams, which the book actually won an award for. It was like a children's book council of some kind. So Clockstracker also picked up an award. Gun Hill also picked up an award. So we've been picking up a couple things here and there. Underground obviously picked up the what's it called? The International Manga Japan International Manga Awards. Got like a bronze award. So we've picked up a couple things. So shout out to the judges, fans, but some there have been a few that have been like voting, but very few. Most of them is like judges and councils and librarians and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. So for this, that's why I had to get. Yeah, we had to get somebody because I'm not too. It's almost like just picking up and just drawing a comic. You know, there's people that can do illustrations, but you can't really do a comic.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean
yeah,
you can do a comic.
skill.
So I can tell a good story. It doesn't mean I'm gonna kill it with my first prose, you know, and just writing words. Like it's a different.
It's a medium. It's like you know how a painter could be. You know how a painter couldn't do a comic book or vice versa. You know, it's like
Yeah,
you know they're just different mediums.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
A
definitely,
comic book requires a lot. A comic book requires different things from you than writing a novel. But that's what I'm saying. If you had that skill, if I had that skill, if I was a classical writer and stuff like that,
yeah.
bro, I throw this manga stuff out the window and I'd be I made me some Harry Potter books. For real.
Yeah. So I think he had the beginning after the end guy. I think he's called. I think his name is Turtle Me or something. Turtle Me, I believe. You know, it's funny. I think they called me. Somebody emailed me once to do like to moderate a panel with him somewhere, but I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not. Probably thought I'm one of these like YouTuber people moderating panels. I'm not really doing that, but I think Turtle Me, he seems chill, but he had multiple novels, right? And then it got adapted into multiple things. So I think as a creator in 2025, you can find your way of what works best for you to diversify your portfolio, if you will. Like how best can and effectively can you spread your wings and put your series out there and publish it on whatever website and you know handle the IP legal aspects of it of exclusivity and yada yada yada. Do you want like novel versions of it? And if you're going to post on certain sites, you kind of have to match the format to a degree. So if you want to post on, say, something like Webtoon, but you also want to post on something like Manga Plus creators, I think, then you for Webtoon you got to be in color and scroll. If not,
Gotta.
you're just wasting your time.
Just don't do it.
You're
Just
just
don't do it.
wasting your time. You got to
Don't
be
do
in
it.
color and scroll.
Find a platform that matches what you're doing, but
Yeah, and
you,
so
you got to have the house style for sure.
exactly because you're coming into their home, they're not going to change for you. You have to match what's going on there. And with the novels, remember when we used to do stuff with Amazon? You have to match whatever Amazon's guidelines are. Same thing with whatever you publish on there, whether it's a comic or a novel.
Maybe all of them. They all got their own rules.
Yeah, so I think the tournament guy he found success with just the novels. If y'all can correct me in the comments, I don't know the stuff that well, but I think he found success with the novels. Then it got adapted for like a Tapas original of some kind, and then you got books, and then you got anime. So like the fan base has just been building from there on out. And that's another thing. It's also different kind of fans. Like not this is not always the same fan who's gonna like read prose and then go read the comic. Like you know, now you be swimming in money if you have like hundreds of thousands of all these kinds, or the type that would just buy anything you put out there.
That's what
So
I'm gonna do.
shout out to them. I think the anime is the only slight misstep, but I think if they stick with it and they learn from it, they'll be fine.
Well, I
Well,
mean, the thing is bad publicity. So, I mean, if nothing else, more people will have, discovered it through this.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I'll say is like anime is expensive, right?
True.
Even if it's probably the animation probably looks the way it does because it's the budget is probably low,
but
right? So if the budget wasn't crazy and if they still pull out crazy numbers, I can totally see them getting greenlit. But if somehow the budget was crazy despite everything here, then it could be an issue. Maybe you don't get another seat. Maybe you don't get another shot. But I think you would. You know what? Sometimes some people can do right, and it goes back to what we were talking about. How you could even plan for a long running series, but you can just focus on this arc and just end it. If it's popular enough, then it can come back, right? So with like
Yeah.
the anime, if something wrong happens, they can always one restart, which is what the petition is. The petition is to not cancel it, not well, is to cancel it, but redo it, start from scratch.
they
So
did it with Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Super. They went and they were complaining about the animation on that when it first came out, and they went back and fixed it up for the Blu-ray release.
and there you go, right? So, but that one they did it for the Blu-ray release, right? So they could do something where maybe they put the season out, but then they come back and they do a new, better version. One Piece is coming out with a new everything. So I think because the IP is probably strong, this is not going to destroy it. You know what I mean? They can learn from it and do better next time, or just they could legitimately reboot it and do the beginning after the end again, or something. I don't know.
One more time.
Or the beginning after the end in the beginning. Okay.
Well, fellas, I want to ask y'all. So, like with these chats and stuff like that, I really like I said, I would love if I wish we had something like this when I was coming up, like with just like real like mangaka, like actually talking about their experience. So like so before we end it, I kind of want to be like I just want to say like as a okay, I'm a new creator. I got a manga idea, all this stuff, whatever, and I want to take you guys' advice. I want to go ahead and take a stab at a one shot. Can y'all walk me through what I need to do to get started?
uh First off, I will just confess like there is no one video, one advice, one anything that you're going to just hear and all of a sudden it's going to click. I think it only always clicks once you actually do it and you keep trying. And if you're honest and serious with your craft, you understand how to improve, you understand how to look at what you've done and see your mistakes, how to take criticism from credible sources. A lot of people claim to be critics, but they're not. So criticism from credible sources, and then just grow. And that's why you don't do just one shot. You might end up having to do multiple one shots, right? Now I could say some things that a one shot should have or a chapter should have, and I can name a bunch of things. It doesn't mean that the chapter should have every single one of these things all the time. But let's say I name like 50 things. It'll be good to have maybe 20 of them at least that are happening just to make sure things are going in the right direction. The tension. So I'll give an example. Um, Generally, depending on what's happening in the story, if you're trying to build tension, for instance, right? And so this goes for whether it's a one shot or a regular chapter. The only thing with one shots is it's almost like it's like a little bit of a pitch. It's a pilot. It is a standalone story. So once it's done, it should feel satisfactory, and it should feel like if this is the end, then this is the end. You know what I mean? That's the only real difference. There's some regular chapters of a series that could feel like a one shot depending on how you look at it, right? So these are just certain things that chapters should generally have. The only thing that sets one shots apart is that if this is a one shot, if this was it, if this was your one shot, then it's done. That's the only main difference. You still want to make sure the ending is satisfactory and it was a good read overall. It had your beginning, middle, and end, and yada yada yada. And you sold the characters, you sold the world, you kind of pitched it, but you still told a standalone story, right? But An element of what I was talking about, let's say it's a list of things that could be in it. One of the things, say if a scene you want to have tension, is always good to give your character agency and choice. So like they're not just, the story is not just kind of dragging them along or vice versa. Like they're actually making decisions that change the course of the story, that have stakes and consequences to it, right? Their choices have weight, and that you want to have the element of choice, consequence of the actions, both designed to push the development of the story. And then what also helps, especially to build tension, is if there's like a time limit. So it's like, okay, you not only have to make this consequential choice, but there's a limit where maybe after a certain time, the choice will be made for you, and maybe everybody dies. It's kind of like those moments where you have to cut the wire in a bomb. Those are always tense for those, because it has all those elements, right? And that's why movies and everything kind of always plays with those things. And so agency, where you have choice, consequence, uh, uh, time limit, and I forgot what the last one is, but all of them kind of help build tension. Mission. I saw a video that kind of touches on this, and it was it was focused on Mission Impossible movies and how they use this as well. So that is like one of the elements that I would say you can integrate into your storytelling style, that regardless of whatever you're doing. But specifically for one shots are just standalone stories, and you just want to make sure that it is satisfactory. You want to make sure that it is, like, for it to qualify as a one shot, technically, it is, and the page count doesn't matter too much, right? You could have a 5-page one shot. It is satisfactory. It could stand alone, ending. It is interesting. Now, that interesting part is loaded, right? Because there are a lot of, it's very diverse. It's very, you know, there's a lot, there's a lot that goes into what interesting is, right? But what makes it a one shot is something that stands alone. Like if somebody reads this, by the end of it, they can feel like, oh, that's it. That's the end of this. Like if they're, maybe I want more, but if this is the end, I'm good.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I mean, he said everything perfectly. I would say not only all of that, but try to like actually find out what your actual limits are as well. Like first off, when you draw something, actually complete it. Try to work your way up. If you're gonna do something that's 5 pages, for instance, that's a pretty easy goal to meet. So, and once you meet it, you'll know whether or not you want to do it again. You'll know whether or not you want to like jump back into the fray and say, "Hey, I want to do something that's 10 or 15 or however many pages." So, complete something because that will immediately let you know this is for me, this isn't for me. But then after that, if let's say you do something that's 20 pages, give yourself a deadline because it will push you to actually completing it in that deadline. It'll not only give you some practice if you decide to do this in the future, like professionally, because there's several deadlines that are always going to be there for if you're with Saturday AM or my case Oni Press or whatever. Even if you're going to do this by yourself, if you have like investors or Kickstarters or whatever, like having a deadline will force you to plan out time to actually complete it. So definitely have a deadline. One thing that I would say to help you plan out everything is to maybe write it down in bullet points. I've been doing this for a while now. Have every bullet point basically be that page. It doesn't have to be too detailed. Make that one bullet point a sentence. Like on this one page, this needs to happen. Obviously, other things can happen on that page too, but just as long as this happens, I'm good. I tell people that I talk to about this. Whenever you plan out a one shot or a chapter, try to write out the first bullet point and the last bullet point. That's the first page and the last page, and then everything else in the middle, you fill in. If there's important parts that need to happen on, let's say, on page 5, and also on page 10, then write those in, and then that way you at least know, okay, by between page 1 and page 5, I need to set up everything so that way page 5 actually hits this. And then that way from page 5 to 10, I can actually hit that, and so on and so forth. So, definitely everything that, White said, he hit everything, make sure it actually, feels like an ending. You don't want it to like actually have a cliffhanger. That's one of my pet peeves when it comes to like summer of manga. I've seen a lot of really talented people and they've done a pretty decent job, but I've seen so many that I'm like, now it's done. But like it's not actually finished. So that's my pet peeve. But yeah, definitely, try to actually have something that's satisfactory because I think that definitely will last a little bit longer in reader's head. And if it feels like a movie, that's kind of like where I'm at. Like a movie or a pilot episode, if it feels like something that's like, okay, I always bring it back to Iron Man, #1. Had that movie failed, the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe would not have been, what it is today. But it was a good enough movie on its own to where it was able to, evolve into what it is now. So being able to hit those points, being able to make it entertaining, satisfactory, like that's definitely what you want to, try to do for your first manga or any manga that you do.
Yeah,
I'll share one piece of advice I got a long time ago. Back in the day where I used to like, I don't know if it's popular anymore, but like back in the day, you used to could submit stuff to like Marvel, DC, like they would have like a submission package where you just put all your pages in, your story, and just literally mail it off to people and see what happens. Granted, I never got hit back. I was like, I just started drawing comic books seriously. But one guy did hit me back and said, and it always stuck with me. He said, you got talent, but you just don't have enough pages under your belt yet. And that always stuck with me because you got to get those pages out the way because like I'm a big believer that your first comic is always going to be your worst one, period, hands down. So like, if nobody knows what the number is, but let's say it takes you 1,000 pages to get your rhythm. Maybe it takes you 500 pages. Maybe it takes you 2. Whatever that number is. But the point is to get those pages done and out the way because every page you do, you're one step closer to hitting your stride. Compressed. You can't just do like 10 pages, then come back 2 years later do another 10 pages. Like if you like they always talk about with the hours. Like if you put 10,000 hours into something, you become a master at it. I think it's the same thing with pages. The more pages you can get under your belt, even if they're horrible, they're not as planned out as they could be. Just get those pages out of your system onto a page, and eventually you'll get to that place where you find kind of your rhythm, your style, and what works for you and what doesn't. Because all the stuff that you guys are talking about, you guys have come to these conclusions over doing this for almost over 10 years.
Yeah, over.
I mean, have you guys ever just sat down and counted how many pages you guys have done over the years?
I know it's over 1,000 for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, for Hammer alone, it's over 1,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm talking about everything you've done with pages, like because I'm sure there's pages of Strawberry Black sitting around out there. I know Jay, you got that one shot book with all your one shots in. I mean, shit, that was enough to fill a book. That was like 200 pages right there. You know what I mean? So like, but my point is that man, like, don't be in a rush to try to be Kizimoto. Take your time. You know what I mean? Just know that, like anything, this takes time. It's very difficult, but it's fun. It's fun, but it's difficult, and you only get better by doing it. That's my take on
it. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, those are all the things. Again, remember that it's even with this advice, you can still do whatever weird thing you want to do. Technically, it's all still art. Like even with the cliffhanger thing. I remember like HBO Watchmen. It ends. It's a one series story. Like it's only almost like a mini series, whatever. But it's one series on HBO, right? One season, sorry. And it ends in a way where, these endings, kind of like an Inception ending, where it's like, oh, is it dreams or not dreams?
Right. No, it's like a discussion piece. Like,
yeah. But
did it really end?
Inception was a one-off movie, right? So it left you with that question. So it's not to say that you can't end on that kind of cliffhanger. It just needs to end in a way where
it's satisfactory.
Yeah, it's satisfactory. Right?
Yeah.
We're good. So like it can't end in a way where it's like, let's say you've done like act 1, you've written let's say you know what you're doing with the act structure stuff, and you've done act 1, act 2. And then act 3, you just ended at act 2 and called it one shot. Then that's not really a good one shot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then it's like it feels incomplete. But if it feels complete enough, then you're good. Even if you end with like a question, right? Sometimes you can end with a question where the audience is supposed to fill in the gaps, and so you did that on purpose. So
Mhm.
it just needs to be satisfactory and just feel complete. That's what a one shot.
Only thing I add to it is, man, make it simple. Especially if you first go at it,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
don't be trying to do Death Note, man. Don't be trying to do something crazy, man. Just go with something that's just like straightforward. You know what I mean? Don't be. I wouldn't say I would stay away from like super convoluted stuff. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I remember with Apple Black Chapter 1, I was trying to kill like multiple birds with one stone. I wanted to write like a first chapter, but I wanted to write it in a way where it's like if it is a one shot, you can kind of see it as a one shot, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how successful I was at that. I think it ended up still feeling like a first chapter, which is fine because that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But there's some elements to it where it's like if it ended here, I wrote it and put it in that structure with that in mind. But I think especially today, just pick a lane and keep it simple.
And
Yeah,
that's something I don't think people talk about either, man. And I've experienced this doing with putting Bully Eater inside of annual. It like forces me, gives me a page count, and it's literally one shots of Bully Eater, right?
yeah,
And dude, there's something satisfying about finishing. You know
yes.
what I mean? Like it really is. Like I can't really put my finger on it, but like when you do something you know it's done, I don't know, man. I can't really explain the feeling,
It's
but
it.
I think every artist owes themselves
Yeah.
to finish things.
Yeah, it's like when artists have like, oh, I have this project and that project,
Yeah.
but instead of a project, right? You had a now you have a product. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Yes.
You have
That's the way to
you
put it.
have a product now. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is out there.
Yeah.
Especially if it's out there making you money. You're like, yeah,
And look, it don't even have to be your series because I'm working with one of the one of the historically black colleges, and they're doing a comic book right now. And this is my second one doing it for them, and I'm coming to the end of it. And I'm done with it now. And the comic book, it was done by a bunch of students, and they did a really great job with everything. But even though I didn't really, only thing I really did with it was like clean it up, letter it. I did the graphic design, all that stuff. Now that it's done and in front of me, I mean, that's a good feeling. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
It's an accomplishment. You get
it is. It
when
is.
you that's another thing, right? When you do these projects, you have all these one shots. You're accomplishing things, and
Yes.
you're building confidence from those accomplishments.
Yeah.
So it's just something you kind of build on. Those people where they're timid and they're drawing stuff, and you've never drawn it before, and you don't want to mess it up. If you've already messed it up in the past and you got it right, or you got it wrong and you saw the mistake and then eventually you got it right, the more times you get it right,
Yeah.
the more times you get it right. Let's say I've never drawn a plane before. After I draw that plane a couple times and I finish,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna need reference anymore. I'm just gonna draw the plane. It's like drawing comics. Obviously, it takes time, but anytime like I get to a panel where it's like maybe the panel, I have to like draw a face on the panel or something like that, or hand or something where it's just like upper body stuff because I've drawn it so many times.
Oh yeah.
It's so easy.
That panel is done like that.
Yes.
No sketch, no nothing, just straight ink. Done.
Done.
Now, if it's some complex,
You spend hours.
and then it's like, oh, okay, I need to slow down. I need to think in layers. I need to get the anatomy right. But if it's like a pose with the face, especially like a face, you know how many times I've drawn Sano, Opal, done. So it's like because you've done it so many times, you've also built confidence from all the times you did it right, and I think that's what that is. But
it's also building something that you can look back on and know exactly, oh, I started right here and this is where I'm at today. It gives you even more confidence because you get to see your actual growth. Yeah. So that's why I said, definitely try to finish up something because then you can, move on to the next project and so on and so forth.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's it. That's all we got for you guys. Hopefully you guys don't have a plan to do a 200 chapter manga thing.
Don't do it.
I promise you're not going to finish. I promise you. Unless you plan to be doing this when you're 90, you're not Wolverine. I'm sorry. You're not. So even me doing the plan of like 18, 20, that's even that's still wild. But thankfully I have manga assistants and stuff like that. So,
I'll be 40 years old, roughly, maybe a little bit. when Hammer is
Like,
finished. That's insane.
like I wanna do other stuff, bro. You know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like even if it's like an other stories or even another Apple Black spinoff, even like the book, like even this book, right? I like this book is a standalone, right? If there is no follow, I could write a follow up, but if this is the only light novel I write, it's fine. Like you're not gonna read this book is kind of like a one shot in a way, right?
It's
So
its own.
yeah, it's his own thing, right? You know, the Hollywood people, you wanna make some money. You want to make some money?
Start doing this. We start doing this. You already up to no good. You already up to no good. We start doing the Birdman.
Hollywood, you want to make some. You want to make some
Yeah.
money. You want to put Apple Black, not Harry Potter to shame. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
You already lost with Birdman. You already lost, man.
You know what I'm
They
saying?
already know
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So hopefully you guys enjoyed this and you got a lot from it. You know you picked our brains even though you didn't ask, and you enjoyed this. But to close updates, March Art Madness just ended. Shout out to the Boredom Holic, the winner of March Art Madness. We have recent books that just come out. We have Orisha, Titan King Volume 3. See, these are people with multiple volumes as well. Everybody's cooking. So Orisha looks great. Titan King looks great. Hammer Volume 5. Also, that looks great. Y'all can go check those out. If you go to Saturday-am.com, you'll be able to see all the books that we've published worldwide. Some of them translated into multiple languages. More languages to come. I believe French and Japanese are very close and are next in line. And then we have other things that I cannot mention here that would blow your mind. At least like 3 or 4 things. 2 that feel more immediate that will blow your mind for sure. So y'all stay tuned for that. But outside of that, unless you guys have anything else to add, we're out.
Oh,
No,
man.
I'm good.
All right. Peace, guys.
Deuces, guys.